Every moment you live is built on a story you were never told. Empires that vanished overnight, warriors who reshaped the world, civilizations erased, and truths buried beneath the dust of centuries. Here, we open the doors of time. We dig into the mysteries, the legends, and the forgotten realities that shaped humanity. From powerful kings to unstoppable armies to the secrets that history tried to hide. This is where every story returns to life. If you crave epic stories, ancient battles, true legends, and cinematic history, join a rising community of explorers, thinkers, and storytellers who want to see history the way it was meant to be told. Dramatic, raw, and alive. Hit the bell icon, because every week a new chapter of humanity is revealed. With every video, I bring ancient worlds to life, not with textbooks, but with emotion, power, and visual storytelling that makes you feel the past. So stay with me, and let's travel through time together, one story at a time. The Shadow Army of Empires. They were called immortals, not because they couldn't die, but because their ranks never fell. A soldier lost in battle was replaced before sunrise, so the world believed an army of 10,000 warriors could never be broken, never be reduced, never be defeated. But who were they, really? Travel back over 2,500 years to the rise of the Achaemenid Empire, where Persia forged one of the greatest fighting forces ever seen, an elite brotherhood chosen from nobility, trained from childhood, and sworn to defend the king with their lives. They marched in silence, armor shining like hammered gold, their spears tipped with silver, their bows ready with poison-soaked arrows. To enemies, they were a nightmare, an army that moved like a single living creature, disciplined, precise, unshakable. To Persia, they were the last line of defense, and sometimes the first spark of conquest. But behind the glory lies a truth far more complex. Political power, hidden rivalries, and a secret structure that kept them loyal even through the empire's darkest hours. Tonight, we uncover the real history of the Persian Immortals, their training, their weapons, their victories, and the truth behind their legendary name. This is not mythology. This is the empire's deadliest secret made real. Before an immortal ever touched a sword, he learned obedience. In the Persian Empire, greatness didn't begin on the battlefield. It began in childhood. The future immortals were selected from noble families, boys raised with one purpose, to serve the king without hesitation. From the age of 5, their world changed. No softness, no luxury, no weakness. They were taught to run long distances across burning deserts, to ride horses until their legs trembled, and to shoot arrows so precisely that even in darkness, their aim never shook. Their teachers drilled them with a single belief: the empire lives if you stand. The empire dies if you fall. But training was only the beginning. What set the immortals apart was not merely skill, but the discipline of unity. They ate together, they marched together, they slept side by side under starless nights, their shields stacked like the walls of a fortress. And above all, they acted as one mind. If one faltered, another stepped in. If one fell, another replaced him instantly. A perfect, unbroken line of warriors that made enemies believe they were witnessing something supernatural. But the truth was even more terrifying. Persian generals didn't create the immortals to be heroes. They created them to be symbols. Symbols of stability. Symbols of fear. Symbols of a king who appeared too powerful to lose even a single soldier. And with this illusion, the empire expanded, from the mountains of Anatolia to the river valleys of India. Yet behind that golden curtain lay the grueling reality of their lives. Endless discipline, strict loyalty, and a code so unforgiving that even a moment of hesitation was considered betrayal. The immortals weren't just warriors. They were the living heartbeat of the Persian Achaemenid dynasty. But their greatest strength was still being forged. A weapon feared from Greece to Babylon and unmatched for centuries. In the next chapter, we enter the core of their fighting power. The equipment, strategy, and legendary formation that turned 10,000 men into the most efficient killing machine of the ancient world. The weapons of an empire. Weapons alone don't make a warrior, but the immortals carried tools designed to dominate every battlefield they stepped onto. Each man was armed with 4 deadly instruments, a combination that made them adaptable, precise, and terrifyingly efficient. First, the Achaemenid, a short Persian sword, light, razor-sharp, perfect for close combat in tight formations. It wasn't meant for show. It was meant to end lives quickly. Second, the spear, a symbol of Persian elite status. Most armies used wood tipped with iron, but the immortals marched with spears tipped in silver and gold, not for decoration, but to mark them as the king's chosen warriors. When 10,000 spears leveled forward at once, the sunlight turned into a blinding wall of fire. Third, the composite bow. Unlike the simple wooden bows of other nations, this weapon was engineered with wood, horn, and sinew, designed to punch arrows through shields at shocking distances. Many of those arrows were coated with deadly poisons that made even a minor wound fatal. And finally, the wicker shield. Light, flexible, perfect for mobile warfare. These shields allowed the immortals to move fast, advance without hesitation, and maintain their famous formation even on chaotic terrain. But their equipment was only half the story. What made them unstoppable was how they used it together. The immortals fought in perfect synchronization. Archers firing in coordinated waves, shield bearers advancing as one, spear lines tightening like the closing jaws of a predator. Their tactics blended speed with precision. They could break heavy infantry, chase down cavalry, or dissolve into a swarm of arrows that darkened the sky. While most armies relied on brute strength, the immortals relied on strategy, discipline, and timing. They didn't rush. They didn't panic. They moved like a single machine, every man a cog in the Empire's greatest weapon. It was this unity, this silent coordination, that made even the bravest enemies lose heart before the battle truly began. But their real trial, their true test, was waiting across the sea, in lands where mountains swallowed armies whole, and warriors fought with a ferocity Persia had never seen. Next, we enter the battles that carved their legend into history, the battles that made them legends. The immortals were not forged to guard palaces. They were created for war, to break kingdoms, crush rebellions, and demonstrate the unstoppable reach of the Persian Empire. Their first true test came under Cyrus the Great, the founder of the dynasty. While other armies hesitated before enemy walls, the immortals advanced with steady, silent discipline. Shields interlocked, spears aimed forward, arrows raining overhead like the anger of the gods. They became a weapon Cyrus wielded with precision against Media, Lydia, Babylon. One by one, ancient powers crumbled beneath the march of Persia's elite. And then came Cambyses II, a ruler consumed by ambition. Under him, the immortals marched into Egypt, across endless sand, through blinding heat, facing war chariots, desert winds, and pharaohs determined to stand their ground. But the immortals did not break. Their formation held, their rhythm never faltered. And when the dust finally settled, Egypt, the land of gods and pyramids, fell under Persian rule. Still, their greatest challenge would come not from deserts but from the rugged mountains of Greece. A land of fierce warriors, a land of unpredictable terrain, a land that refused to kneel. Under King Darius, the immortals marched west, confident, unified, their reputation spreading faster than their armies. Every kingdom they passed whispered the same words: the immortals are coming. At Marathon, they met fighters unlike any they had faced. Soldiers who feared no empire, men who fought not for kings, but for freedom. There, the immortals discovered something new, an enemy who could match their discipline and challenge their legend. Yet their defeat did not break them. It sharpened them. For when Xerxes, son of Darius, rose to power, he summoned the immortals for a war that would echo for thousands of years. A war that would take them to a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, to meet 300 warriors whose defiance became eternal. But before steel clashed in that narrow corridor, the immortals prepared for a confrontation that would define their legacy forever. Thermopylae, the Wall of Fire. The Immortals had conquered deserts, rivers, and kingdoms, but nothing prepared them for a narrow strip of land called Thermopylae, a place where cliffs crushed the sky and the sea roared below like a hungry beast, a place where strategy meant everything, and mistakes meant death. When Xerxes marched his massive army into Greece, the Immortals were his pride, the core of his war machine. Their armor gleamed, their ranks flawless, their reputation unmatched. But waiting in that narrow corridor was a king with only 300 warriors, Leonidas of Sparta. And in the silence before the clash, both sides understood that this battle would not be ordinary. It would be a message, a symbol, a moment that history would replay for thousands of years. The Immortals advanced, expecting the Spartans to break. No army had ever withstood the pressure of 10,000 elite men pressing forward with unified force. But the Spartans did not bend. They did not flee. They fought shoulder to shoulder, using the narrow pass to neutralize Persian numbers. Every time the Immortals surged, the Spartans pushed them back. Shields slamming, spears piercing, bodies falling into the red dust. For the first time, the Immortals faced an opponent whose discipline matched their own. Wave after wave, they attacked. Wave after wave, they were forced to retreat. Whispers spread through the Persian ranks. Is this the first crack in the legend? But Xerxes believed his elite force could outlast any resistance. He ordered the Immortals to deliver the finishing blow, to finally break the Spartan line. The clash was brutal. Dust rose like smoke from a burning city. Shields splintered, spears snapped. The sound of metal hitting bone echoed across the mountains. Yet even then, the Spartans held. Thermopylae was not a defeat, it was a revelation. The Immortals learned that even legends can bleed. Even elite warriors can be matched. But the pass was eventually betrayed, and when the Persians found the hidden path, the battle turned. Surrounded, the Spartans fell, but their final stand carved their names into eternity. And though Persia claimed the field, the message was clear. A small force, prepared to die, can stand against an empire. This moment forever changed how the world viewed Persia, and how Persia viewed its own invincible army. But the Immortals did not fade. Their story continued through betrayal, rebellion, and the rise of new kings. Next, we reveal how this elite force evolved and what became of them as the empire faced its greatest enemy. Alexander the Great. Fall of an empire. Fall of the Immortals. Empires rarely die in a single moment. They weaken, quietly, slowly, from the inside out. And the Immortals, the army once feared across continents, began to sense the fractures spreading through the Persian world. After the Greco-Persian Wars, the Achaemenid Empire was still enormous, still powerful. But something had changed. The unity that once held Persia together started to unravel. Corruption crept through the royal court. Rival nobles whispered behind palace walls. Assassinations replaced loyalty, and kings rose and fell through blood and betrayal. The Immortals remained loyal, but they were no longer serving the empire of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes. They were serving rulers who feared their own shadows. And far to the west, a storm was rising. A young king, barely more than a boy, was gathering an army unlike any Persia had faced. Alexander of Macedon, a commander who studied every mistake Persia had ever made. A leader who marched not to conquer land, but to conquer history itself. When Alexander crossed into Persian territory, the Immortals were summoned once more. Older now, fewer, but still carrying the pride of centuries of service. At Issus, the Immortals clashed with Alexander's phalanx. Their arrows darkened the sky, their spears gleamed like fire. Yet Macedonian discipline and strategy began to pierce through the illusion of Persian invincibility. Still, they fought. Still, they advanced. Still, they died before letting their king fall. But the empire was changing faster than even the Immortals could adapt. At Gaugamela, Alexander's genius and the chaos within Persia finally collided. The Persian lines wavered. The Immortals pushed forward. But they were no longer the unbreakable unit that had once marched behind Cyrus the Great. The battle shattered Persia's stability. When King Darius III fled, the heart of the empire cracked. And with the empire's collapse, the immortals, the symbol of eternal strength, began to fade. No official record tells the exact moment they ceased to exist. There was no last battle, no dramatic final stand, no monument built in their name. Instead, the immortals vanished the same way they lived, as shadows supporting the empire's rise and shadows absorbed by its fall. But their legacy did not disappear. From Greek writers to Middle Eastern historians, their legends spread far beyond the borders of Persia, a symbol of discipline, a symbol of loyalty, a symbol of an empire that once ruled from Egypt to India. And though the Achaemenid dynasty collapsed, the idea of the immortals, the unbroken army of 10,000, continued to echo through time. Next, we close the story. The final chapter reveals the true legacy of the immortals, and why their myth remains alive more than 2,000 years later. The legacy that never died. History remembers kings. It remembers empires. It remembers conquerors whose names echo across centuries. But sometimes, it remembers something deeper. Not a throne, not a crown, but a symbol. The immortals were that symbol. For over 200 years, they stood at the heart of Persian power. 10,000 warriors moving as one, protecting the empire from deserts, mountains, rebellions, and foreign kings who dared to challenge Persia's reign. Their enemies claimed they were supernatural. Greek historians believed they couldn't die. Generations repeated their legend until myth and reality fused into one unstoppable story. But the truth is even more profound. The immortals were human. Men shaped by discipline so intense that it forged an identity stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than death itself. They proved that unity is more powerful than numbers, that loyalty is more powerful than ambition, that an army bound by purpose can become a force the world never forgets. And though the empire fell, their story lived on. In books, in films, in the imagination of millions who still wonder how an army of 10,000 became eternal. The immortals remind us that legends are not born. They are built, crafted by sacrifice, honed by discipline, and preserved by the echoes of history. Their armor may be buried, their spears may be dust, their shields may be forgotten, but their legacy, their immortality, still marches through time. If this journey into ancient Persia brought you closer to history's hidden warriors, don't let the story end here. Subscribe to uncover more forgotten empires, lost warriors, and untold legends. Share this video so more people can witness the rise and fall of the Persian immortals. Like the video if you want more epic historical documentaries just like this. And as always, thank you for watching. The story continues with you.